Today, when we think about TF2's style of humor, something along the lines of this is likely what comes to mind. But if we were to take a time machine back to the year of 2007, we'd probably think of this as TF2's style of humor.
Oh my god, who touched Sasha? Alright. Who touched my gun?
From these two clips, it's easy to see how the game's style of humor has changed throughout the years, and this is yet another thing that was influenced by the community. This time around, though, I'm speaking more specifically about the GMOD community. TF2 is no stranger to the community influencing its direction. From community-created hats, maps, and full-blown updates, the community has always had a large part in the continued support of the game. This was especially important early on because an active community of fans told the devs that further support and development of the game would be worth the investment. Before TF2 released alongside the Orange Box, Garry's Mod was released and was gaining a significant foothold in the baby years of the sandbox genre. The game allowed players to let their creativity soar. Early on, players realized they could create rudimentary animations with the game, and in 2007, the popularity in GMOD animation began to rise. Coincidentally, in 2007, that was the year TF2 was also released. Something I feel I have to make clear before we move on is that I personally am not a fan of GMOD. Hey, yeah, I get it, unpopular opinion, but let me quickly explain why I'm mentioning this. What this means is that I don't have a lot of knowledge or history with the GMOD community or even the fan content, so what I speak about in this video is mostly from information I've gathered from outside resources, which is a mix of people with knowledge and internet research itself. If I make a mistake or omit something, I apologize, I was likely unaware of it, so please be gentle with me. With that out of the way, let's move on. So what I believe happened was that the GMOD animation field took a strong foothold, with it gaining more and more of a following. Animators quickly came to realize that the TF2 characters, models, and settings all worked really well in the iconic, what I can only describe as lol random humor GMOD became famous for. This is due to the very unrealistic art style the game adopted. Out of all the Valve assets users had access to, TF2 was the most humorous looking one and the one that best fit the situation animators wanted to put the models in. Plus, I feel like the disproportionate yaoi hands also probably factored into it. With the massive popularity GMOD reached in the years 08 and 09, TF2 became commonly used assets within some of the most popular animations prominently featuring the TF2 mercenaries and or the settings. Like how the Meet the Team series acted as marketing and exposure, the GMOD community essentially and likely accidentally did the same thing. They got TF2's name out there, but it was put under the absolute insane sense of humor that GMOD animations are known for. The main point at which TF2 began its run in GMOD animation was around 2010, at which point influential animators such as Rubberfruit Kitty 0706 and FINELEATHER Jacket started using the mercenaries as characters in their videos. Given the large voice line base they had to go with, a lot of what developed from this trend was based or either based on lines that were readily available or sentence mixing of those lines. Many of the early memes in the TF2 community were based on simply replacing single words in voice lines from the game, such as the Scout is Delicious video and subsequent replies. The benefit of many of these videos was the fact that they were often only a couple of seconds in length, meaning they could easily be animated and uploaded onto the site, further boosting the spread of the format. Over the years, GMOD has progressed with the same kinds of humor as are currently popular on the rest of the internet, bringing with it a sense of prolonged relevance that not many other games can say they have had. Given how TF2 and GMOD go so well together, the popularity of the two go hand in hand, with one's creative base often having a lot of overlap with the others. The influence of one heavily affected the other, and for the most part, so did the sense of humor. The style of comedy that occurred in GMOD and drew many of its crowds also drew in the TF2 community because of the use of characters. People began associating TF2 with the way it was being portrayed in GMOD animations, and I believe the devs realized this and began slowly adjusting the world and humor that was within TF2 to match. What started off as a fairly straightforward premise of two brothers locked in a civil war became about two brothers over 100 years old being kept alive by life-extending machines powered by an element only found in Australia that makes people smart, buff, and grow luscious mustaches, who are fighting over lands filled with gravel that they believe power the world's machines. What began as a fairly simple and straightforward premise evolved into something not only more complex and fleshed out, but weirder as well. It could also be argued that the mercs' personalities were influenced by these GMOD animations. However, I believe this was just a natural form of progression. It's not like the commonly depicted GMOD heavy is anywhere near the heavy that exists in TF2. GMOD didn't just influence TF2's humor, it also influenced in-game content. Both official and unofficial content sprang from GMOD's influence on TF2, with fans creating game modes based on popular characters from GMOD animations and even porting over popular modes from GMOD to work within TF2's unique style of gameplay. One of the most popular TF2 community-created game modes is Prop Hunt, a mode that originated from Gary's mod. In what I believe is one of the most successful conversions between two different games, TF2's version of Prop Hunt keeps the same premise as the original, but sculpts it around TF2's different gameplay. For example, the mode usually pits Scout as props versus Pyros as the hunters. Inherently, there's already a difference in the TF2 version and the GMOD version, with Pyros being able to utilize their flamethrower for prop checking as opposed to a gun, making it easy to simply just puff on props to check without losing much health. Additionally, there's Death Run. It exists. It's not my cup of tea, but it also originated from GMOD, so I feel I need to mention it. Now, in terms of a game mode that was fully inspired by GMOD content, we have Freak Fortress. Starting off as Versus Saxon Hale, Freak Fortress was a mod of a mod that expanded the cast of characters players had the opportunity to choose from and fight. These additional characters all originated from GMOD animations that showcase characters that would simply be referred to as freaks, deformed and demented version of the mercenaries. These freaks added different skills, which in turn increased the replayability of a mode that tended to get a bit repetitive. Instead of simply having the Juggernaut-controlled character press a button to scare the willies out of the enemy team, now pressing the button meant you could do things such as release a volley of arrows, launch a wave of exploding eggs, or even reviving dead players as random bosses, depending on which character you played. So it's easy to see that GMOD also had an influence over what TF2 as a game had to offer. Many custom game modes were not necessarily ported over from GMOD, but rather crafted to fit TF2's unique style of gameplay. So, like many other outside factors that I've talked about in the past, the rise in popularity of GMOD had an indirect, but also direct effect on TF2's post-release development. Not only did many popular community-made mods originate from GMOD, or were inspired by it, but the popularity of early GMOD animations likely influenced the humor of TF2, which essentially took a sharp turn down crazy lane as the years went on. It seems community influence even expands past the walls of just the TF2 community for this iconic game.